in the climate we are now, when things are changing so rapidly and people are getting letters from insurance payers that are dropping rates, people are losing clinicians because the clinicians want to go out on their own, your practice can look very different overnight, and you are kind of left picking up the pieces and figuring out what the heck to do next. But we do recognize when, like you were saying, it is killing the business. Even if you may have a profitable one, that cash is its lifeblood. And if you are pulling too much out, it is going to cause more problems down the line.
You didn't start your practice to barely hang on. I'll guess you started it for freedom, impact, and profit. This is Therapy for Your Money. I'm your host, Julie Harris. I'm an accountant, author of Profit First for Therapists, and CEO of Green Oak Accounting. Over the years, my team and I have partnered with hundreds of private practice owners, whether they're just getting started, scaling into thriving groups, or even preparing to sell. We've seen it all, and we know exactly what makes a practice tick financially. On Therapy for Your Money, I'll help you build a business that truly works for you. You'll get quick, actionable tips and episodes so that you can grow a profitable practice, increase your financial confidence, and pay yourself unapologetically. Because your work is way too important for you to burn out or go broke doing it. Love the podcast? Make sure to follow and give us a 5-star review. Here is Therapy for Your Money. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Therapy for Your Money. Today we have the one and only Jacquie Carter. I wanted to do that goes wild. Jacquie is a fan favorite on the podcast. Her episodes always, without fail, get the most downloads of all of our episodes from the beginning of time. And so we've made this a regular segment where we do a quarterly recap. Jacquie is one of the accounting managers at Green Oak Accounting, so she really gets to be like hands-on in there with her team and their clients. So she's just very acutely aware of like what's going on in the industry, what things are going well, what things are challenges right now. And so we'd love to have her on. Hi, Jacquie.
Hey, how are you?
Hey, good to see you.
Good, you too.
So let's jump right in. So you just had meetings. Your team just met with clients about third quarter. So in September or in October and early November. And so that's what we're talking about today. Kind of what's the vibe on the street?
Yeah.
What are you hearing?
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah.
A lot of things that we're noticing. Payroll seems to be one of those hot topics right now. There's a lot of uncertainty in a lot of different areas. And I think the biggest thing is payroll right now. And there's a lot of people that are really overextended in their payroll. And so we're seeing that a lot now. We always get that question, well, how can so-and-so down the street afford to do all this with benefits and 70% pay? And I can't. Well, I guess the truth is that they really can't either. One, we don't know their financial situations, but really in many instances they can't. We are seeing an influx of people with payroll that is sustainable or unsustainable. And unless owners are willing to make fundamental changes, it won't get better. And it's not so much like, hey, we can't take care of our clients or our employees, or we want to. We absolutely would advocate for you to take care of them, but we also want you to take care of yourself and have a sustainable practice also.
Yeah. So we as the accountants are coming at this from a perspective of your most important job as the owner of the business is to ensure the survival of the business, right? That's my philosophy. You have to ensure the survival of the business. It is the most important thing. Not because taking care of the clients is not important, not because taking care of the clinicians is not important, but if the business no longer exists, you cannot do any of those things, right? By default, if the business has to close, you can't take care of your clinicians, you can't take care of your clients, right? So at the very top, if you make sure the business is okay, that trickles down to everything else. And so, Jacquie, did you know we get hate online on social media because we sometimes say like, you can't pay your clinicians too much. We get some hate about that. Maybe you've seen it, maybe you haven't. I try to protect the team from that, but like we do. Mm-hmm. And I get it, but stand my ground.
Mhm.
If you pay your clinicians a rate that is unsustainable, that means that you are losing money with every single session. The clock is ticking on your practice. There's a day where there's no more cash either personally that you can invest in the business. The line of credit is maxed out. There are no more loans to be had. Like there is a day where that no longer works because in capitalism, a business needs to bring in more money than it takes to run it. That's how
Right.
it works, right? And really in nonprofits, it works that way too, right? A nonprofit has to raise enough money to cover its expenses or it will also fail. So what are the main ways that you're seeing practice owners get in trouble payroll wise?
Yeah, so I see a lot of overextension on benefit expenses.
Okay.
No
Okay.
benefits are incredibly expensive. You don't have to stop with the benefits, but you can modify that, right?
Yeah.
So what we've been talking about is talking to your broker, trying to figure out ways to change the plans you offer, change the percentages that you offer, instead of some of the supplemental things like the Aflac plans and all of those supplemental benefits, right? Like do things that will push that over to the employee deduction. Like you can still offer it, but if they want it, they can pay for it, right? You don't have to have it as 100% employer funded. Um, and one of the biggest things is owners of an S-Corp, right, of an S-Corp entity, skipping payroll to just take draws instead because you're trying to kind of manage cash flow,
Mm-hmm.
by just taking draws, and that is not allowed. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, we see a lot of
That's a
that.
big no-no.
It
If you're
is.
not on payroll, you cannot pay yourself anything as an S corp owner, right? And this applies just for S corps. So if you have an LLC, do not go put yourself on payroll. But for S corporation owners, you can get in hot water there.
Yeah. And I think the other bigger thing with the employee side is offering 70-80% splits on sessions, trying to offer too much for, supervision or management duties, things like that. Um, I really, there is a balance where everything can be sustainable. You can take care of your employees and you can give them a stable place to work where you guys can serve your community. And that really, that's what I hear the most is that they want to really serve the community, make sure that everybody is taken care of. And the way you do that is setting it up sustainably. So all of the foundational pieces of your practice work very well together and you're not overextended on any one place.
Yeah. So are you still seeing today, Jackie, practice owners who want to offer 70 or 80% to just a regular clinician that's not in leadership?
Yeah, we do get that
Yeah.
question. A lot of it has been when they come in and start working with us, they're already 60-70%. To give them a raise, that's where you're pushing your payroll percentage is about 70 to 80%. And if you have an entire staff that is at
Yeah.
that point, chances are you are at a loss point with every one of your people. And so that kind of tanks morale too, right? Because you can't really afford to give them a raise but you want to. They may have been earning it, they may have be killing it, but you just can't afford it because the money isn't there, so you start having to, pull from other places and other places in your practice will suffer.
Yeah. So I know I'm personally not a huge fan of even paying someone in a leadership position, just a higher percentage, right? I think it's a slippery slope to have them get 70 or 80% of the revenue they generate just because of kind of what it incentivizes, right? Because often so I would much prefer someone have the same percentage as everyone else for their clinical role and then a separate hourly rate with a cap on hours for their leadership role. What's your preference?
Yeah, I like that too. I am always okay moving a leadership position kind of towards the salary.
Yeah.
That's kind of the only role that I enjoy, that I would feel like that's a very helpful thing to do. Um, Salary is worrisome to me on the other side,
Yeah.
when it's
Like
the
for a clinic,
clinical.
just a clinician,
Yep,
right?
is because you owe that money no matter what. in days, there might be months where they don't meet their goals, they don't do what they need to do, but you still owe that. And
Yeah.
so, really only moving somebody to salary when they do have more of that leadership type role, is what we would recommend.
Yeah. And it's shocking to me how often we see salaried team members who are not meeting their clinical expectations, right?
Right.
Where the salary was based on kind of this idealistic situation and they literally have never met it. And they're not also being held accountable often. So that's just like money hemorrhaging from the
Mhm.
practice. Yeah.
I think that's
Um,
our biggest topics
yeah.
is how I can get my clinicians to meet the expectations that they've set out. That is
Yeah.
probably one of the number one things we talk through.
Yeah. So, Jackie, when someone is in this like weird payroll funk of like, can I make payroll? It's really expensive. What's the best time to reach out to their accountant?
We need to be in that conversation right away. If you're having issues and you feel like this is something going on, talk to us before you do something. Talk to us before you get the loans. Talk to us before you make a decision on converting contractors to W-2s, right? Or
Yeah.
talk to us first before you make any big decisions
Yeah.
regarding role or loans or anything like that. A lot of times we have some advice to give you. We may not be able to, completely magic wand it and give you the answer, right, that's gonna solve the problem right this instant, but we can talk through. I think the biggest thing is having those conversations with us so that you get it out. You're not sitting there losing sleep at night over this. We're talking it out, having these difficult conversations about what moves you need to make next, because we're seeing the financial piece of it, and we're a little bit more removed from the emotional piece,
Yeah. That's true.
right?
Yeah.
And that can always be such a difficult place for a practice owner to be in.
Yeah. I think the accountant should be the first stop, not the last stop, right? And because it's always just heartbreaking to me when we realize maybe a month after something happened, just by like, what
Mhm.
is this payment? What is this loan that
Yeah.
wasn't there before? Right. And then we're having to ask, like, what is this? And we didn't even know about it when it's too late. The loan has been taken, the term, the signature has been signed. And really, like, we're just wishing that you would talk to us before you did that
Right.
because yeah, once a loan is taken out, there's only so much you can do. Or once you've bounced payroll, or once you're behind on payroll taxes, like your options get more and more limited the more moves you make. Um, and your accountant should not be judging you, right? Like I know that's definitely something that we're known for. It's a no judgment zone, but we're going to tell you the hard truth.
Mhm.
Jackie, you specifically do not sugarcoat anything. I know that for a fact.
No, and I think that's the thing, right? We are very invested in our clients and their successes. And so I always tell my people, right? Like, I'm going to tell you the hard things, but we're going to tell you in love and we're
Yeah.
going to tell you with support and how to fix it, right? I don't ever go into any of this. And I can speak to our whole team about this too, is we get a lot of I can't, right? When it comes to
Mm.
changing payroll or changing things, changing benefits, a lot of that is not an "I can't," but it's an "I won't," because you
Ouch, stab
yeah.
to the heart. Yeah, but you're right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because people are afraid to make those tough decisions because you're afraid to lose clinicians, and sometimes you will, right? We have seen that. Oftentimes, though, the loss of people that are really, really highly compensated is sometimes the best thing in that moment for the practice because you are not having that benefit bill, that payroll bill. You can replace it with somebody that's paid a little bit more sustainably. And that is never an easy conversation, both for us and the practice owner when they're talking through those things. But sometimes those things need to fundamentally change for your practice to remain open. And we've had a lot of people make those hard decisions. It's not easy, right?
It's
It's
not.
not
Yeah.
easy at all for them to go through that, but I always tell people when we are having those tough decisions or tough conversations for those decisions, you're not going through it alone, right? Like your accountant, your, professional, whoever is there with you should be going through that with you and advising you and being there for questions, because it is a very tumultuous place. But we also see a lot of success when people
Yes.
change,
Yes.
which is
Yeah.
great to see. And we celebrate with those people all the time because they have made those hard decisions. Um, and sometimes ultimately though, there's only so much we can do if we get a client in that's a little too late or won't make the necessary changes, right? Like I tell people this all the time, I wish I could make this better immediately so that you don't have to make this decision. If I had my magic wand, I would wave it and everything would be fine and nothing would happen, but that's not the case. And sometimes, right, like without that drastic move, stuff will not get better. And then, right, like we were talking about the ways you get loans and all of those things, they're just going to compound if nothing changes.
Yeah. Which all goes back to your accountant should be your first stop and not your last stop, right? If you, once in a while, we will see what I kind of call a Hail Mary situation, right? Where we are maybe the last option. They've tried a lot of other things. And
Mhm,
sometimes it is too late, unfortunately, right? And we will move heaven and earth, but
mhm,
sometimes it just is too late. Like there are no, we don't have a magic trick or a bucket of cash
mhm.
that magically appears, and especially if the owner is not willing to make some changes and make them quickly and move decisively and take action immediately,
Right.
sometimes it is too late. And that's just, that's heartbreaking. It's never fun to watch someone in that situation. Okay. So sooner than later, talk to your accountant, talk to them early, talk to them often, like keep that communication open because
Mhm.
they know your financial situation. Um, where do we want to go next? We have a few, like, okay, related topic, payday loans.
Yes.
I have very strong opinions what on payday loans. Like, and to me, that is the not really a cash advance, but almost, right? Like the if you think back a couple of years, like if you have a free and clear car title, come get cash for your,
Mhm,
that kind of thing. This is that equivalent for a business
mhm.
where these loans will be able to fund in hours, whereas a
Right.
real true bank loan typically will take 30 to 60 days to fund, right? A line of credit. Those will typically take longer. So that means when they're giving you money almost right away, there's a cost for that.
Oh, yeah.
And those loans are very predatory, and I don't like them.
Mm-mm.
Yeah. So, how do people get in that place where they feel like that's the only option?
Yeah, largely we've seen that because of payroll, um,
Mm,
and all of the benefits I was talking about, all of those expenses. We've had a lot of people do that just to make payroll. And of course, right, when you're looking at the day that you have to run payroll and it's 2 days away, these loans look so inviting and so intriguing. "Oh, I can still make payroll." You are entering a trap that most people do not get out of. A
yeah.
lot of times we see these interest rates 40, 50%. That is just something that you're not once you enter into those, it is so incredibly difficult to get out, and that is, I think, right, like, there's probably been several things leading up to that point where
Yeah.
you're like, "Okay, something needs to change," but you don't know really what, um, and that goes back to, like, something fundamentally has to change with your pay structure or your expenses. And it kinda leads to the next topic, right, of, like, the owner's draws. If you have a lifestyle, right, that's pulling all of the cash out of the company and you have to get a loan to be able to support that,
Alarm
that
bells, alarm
yeah,
bells. Like,
right? Like, and
something's got to give. Yeah.
yeah, and, I have had this conversation with a lot of people where the business owner and your personal life, right? They are kind of one and the same because you are the business owner.
Yeah.
One thing directly always affects the other. And so it's not enough sometimes just to budget with the company, purge expenses, do the things in the company. Sometimes you have to do that personally too. And none of that is easy. But it has to be done sometimes, especially in times like kind of like where we are now, where things are kind of uncertain, things are really expensive. It's better to take those take those things and just do an audit personally and professionally of expenses of things you actually need. Um, and a lot of times that will help the situation. It won't help it overnight, but it will start that ball rolling in a different direction for sure.
Yeah. And there's often wants masquerading as needs, right? I cannot count how many times our team has been told like, "Oh, well, I need to take out $25,000 a month from the company because ABC," right? My car payment, my mortgage, my all that. Like, I assure you, most Americans live on less than $25,000 a month, right? It is not a need, it is a want. Like there's a way to reduce lifestyle. And if your company can support that, amazing. I love that for you and we are celebrating with you and we are cheering you on.
Mhm.
However, sometimes that lifestyle is what is the expression we it's like you're killing the golden goose, right? The
Right.
business is the golden goose that lays the golden eggs and you're slowly strangling it to death because you're not leaving enough cash in the business.
Yeah.
And that's kind of this vicious cycle. And
Yeah.
it's okay to have like this is a priority, right? This I absolutely wanted you like what's something that maybe you've heard recently that is a priority. I can't take less because I need blank.
Right. Like I need to pay this car payment. I need to, fund my super expensive, like kindergartners help private school, right? Like, and we're not saying that those may not be very important things, right? But if you can't sleep at night because you're worried about how to make payroll the next day, some of those things need to change.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying they need to change forever,
Yeah.
but in the climate we are now when things are changing so rapidly and people are getting letters from insurance payers that are dropping rates, people are losing clinicians because the clinicians want to go out on their own. Your practice can look very different overnight and you are kind of left picking up the pieces and figuring out what the heck to do next.
Yeah.
And so this is just a piece of that, right? Like it is something that, we don't really advise on the personal financial stuff, but we do recognize when, like you were saying, it is killing the business. Even if you may have a profitable one, that cash is its lifeblood. And if you are pulling too much out, it is going to cause more problems down the line.
Yeah. And to that point, Jackie, I mean, there are plenty of practices that are doing well right now, right?
Oh,
That
yeah.
still very much exists. So it's not like everyone is doing poorly, no one's doing well. That's not at all the case. There are plenty of practices that are doing well. It's just we are noticing kind of this uptick of
Right.
payroll issues, maybe even not paying payroll taxes, which is fraud, right? You cannot do that. You have to make your payroll tax payments, right? That kind of thing. We're just seeing this uptick of that. And I think it's a good idea before you get to a place where you're completely out of options to think about like if I had to make changes, what would that be? Right? I think as the business owner, it's a good idea to do that. If you as a business owner have an emergency fund personally, you could say, okay, I'm going to choose not to pay myself for a few months and I'm going to tap into my emergency fund or I'm going to cut A, B, and C, right? We can't answer that question for you.
Mhm.
You're the one who knows what are the most important things. Like maybe you are downsizing your car. Maybe you're not a member at the country club or whatever, right? Like there are things that you can usually trim. Maybe we're not going out every Friday to dinner, right? Like there are things that you usually can trim and having a sense before that day comes where you think there's literally no choice because there's no money.
Right.
It's a good idea to kind of go down the rabbit hole and think about what that would be before the day comes, right?
Yeah, because I know a lot of time, right, with the Change Healthcare thing last year, for
Yeah.
example, practices that had done that before the
Yes.
emergency were in a much better place to kind of ride that out, and they had much clearer vision of their options, right? Like they knew what to do if the issues were happening. It wasn't easy still,
Yeah.
right? Like it's still difficult, but they rode through that a lot better than some other practices that kind of they're riding tooth and nail to try to make payroll and pay bills and things like that, right? So I agree with that wholeheartedly. It's always easier to figure out those things before there's an issue, before you're panicking and you're not really thinking through maybe all your options very
Yeah.
clearly, right? Because you're just there, you're faced with some stuff.
I call that the what's the worst that could happen game, where you go like it's not a fun game, but you go all the way down the rabbit hole of like, okay, if this like everyone quits, what happens, right? What's the worst that can happen? Like what are all the like what's the downhill, something like that. We lose Medicare. It's like we're no longer a Medicare provider, right? It's like thinking as a if I was a practice owner,
Mhm.
or Anthem drops their rates $40. Like, what do we do?
Mhm.
Okay, that's what's the worst that can happen? Like, go all the way down and kind of what would you adjust? So, lots of insurance changes happening, right? Coming up, we are just seeing renewal rates rising. For benefits for your team, but also insurance practices. What's the word on the street? What are you seeing?
Yeah, there's a lot of letters being sent out, and I know I've had this conversation with multiple practice owners this quarter about rates dropping,
Hmm.
reimbursement rates dropping. I think there's one practice discussed being reduced about $41 per session.
Oof.
Yeah. And there's really no, like, backup for why, and I think that's what's so difficult is, like, we know that just expenses are things are getting more expensive, but then all of a sudden to be getting letters, in multiple states, in multiple areas that they're saying, "Well, your reimbursement rate was this, but now we're dropping it to this," and it's almost feeling like that, "Well, good luck, bye," kind of
Yeah,
conversation. It's just a letter, and I've had practice owners calling those providers and asking like what's going on. They're not getting answers, they're not getting clear directions for any options or other things that they can do, and I know that that is just incredibly panic inducing.
yeah,
um and we're working with several of our people right now to try to like minimize that impact overall, and like things they can do. And I think one of the things, increasing your mix of payers to where you're not relying 100% on one payer, I think is one of the things we've been advising to do. And just I think the biggest part of all of this is being prepared for those worst case scenarios. Because you don't know when they're going to happen. And just because you haven't gotten a letter yet, right? Like that's great. And I don't, but they're just coming kind of sporadically, which I think everybody's kind of confused as to like why some of this stuff is going on. So just right, like dealing with in multiple states also, which
yeah.
is concerning.
Well, and when that happens, like there is probably action required, right? If obviously I would appeal, but if you are paying your team members a flat rate or a salary,
Mhm.
probably changes have to be made, right? And that's not easy. That's not fun. No one wants to do that, right? Like I think mental health should be reimbursed at a much higher rate, right? Like
Mhm.
we are in your corner. We are advocates,
Yeah.
but that doesn't make it true, right? And the math has to make sense.
Mhm.
So something, there's going to be a downstream repercussion to that. Um,
Absolutely. And I've try to convey to the practice owners that we've dealt with is be transparent with your people and tell them what's going on, right? Like nobody's going to react well if they come in one day and their rate is just dropped and they don't know why, right? So it's really important that if you
yeah,
do have to do that, which is some of the advice we've been having to kind of walk through and what the impacts are, is how does that impact them? Why is this happening, right? Like just having those very transparent and honest conversations with your people, I think is a good way to start, right?
yeah. Yeah. And just know this is also happening in multiple industries, right? This is
Mhm.
happening in occupational therapy and physical therapy. Like it is happening kind of across the board,
Mhm.
um, in a way that feels very unfair, but is still the reality, right? Like, yes, you can go out and fight it and you should, right? I really think you should, but that doesn't change the reality of today. Like, how are we going to keep the lights on today? So having that contingency plan can be good.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, we cannot finish on a negative note. It's like I love this episode, our quarterly recap, because we kind of talk about like what's actually happening out there.
Mhm.
And some people are still doing really well, right? It's not all doom and gloom, but Just be careful. And I feel like if we can just shine a light on, here's what's happening to some people, just be careful in case it might happen to you. I think we have won. That's our goal here. So what are some words of inspiration you have for us, Jackie?
Yeah. I know, any professional that you work with, HR, legal, accounting, right? We have to tell you those hard truths and we have to open the door of communication about it, whether it's in a podcast like this or in a meeting with you one on one. We see what's going on and we tell you those truths because that's what you need to know to hear or need to hear to improve the situation,
Yeah.
right? And whatever that looks like, it may not be as drastic as what we've all been talking about with payday loans and all this other stuff, but it may be other things that we notice. And so I think, right, like whenever you hire somebody to help you, sometimes you are going to hear things that are hard to hear, right? And we always speak it in love, right? Some professionals may not, but we always try to really do that because we don't want you to ever feel like there's no answer. We always want to leave you with here's some actionable
Yeah.
items to try and improve this situation. Because there's always something you can do about it. Always, whether it is calling, a lender to try to postpone your payments for a time if you're in a really bad position, subletting your rent space, right? Like something, there's always something you can do um to make it better. So we never ever want our people to feel stuck in where they are and oh well they're sorry, there's nothing you can do. No, there's always something you can do.
There's always
Sometimes it just
something.
involves some hard decisions, but
Yeah.
that's what we're here for, right? To help you improve that
Yeah.
situation.
It might not be a fun something, but there is something. All right. What's your last piece of advice, Jackie?
Yep. So I think the biggest thing that I have read in the past is if you do a personality test, right? If you do some of those things and you feel kind of attacked because it feels true, same sort of situation applies here, right? If you're listening to us and you
Mm,
feel kind of attacked, I would absolutely go through the exercises that we've been talking through today because you may not be in a problem right now, right? Like, it might be fine, but like Julie said, it's always good to have that plan just in case things go south. Um, so definitely not our not our goal to attack you, but
yeah.
we want to just make sure that everybody listening is a little bit better off than when we found you today.
Okay. So for anyone who's feeling like, oh, how dare they say that? Go play the game. What's the worst that could happen? Which is not a good game, but go do it, do the exercise. And I think you'll feel some relief. Like, okay, there's a plan. It's fine. Everything's fine.
Absolutely.
Okay. So my takeaways then for today, if you don't have a team of professionals around you to help you as a business owner, it's a good time to find one, right? Um, there's a lot of different professionals out there who can help you with whatever you need help with. So that would be kind of one. Go down the rabbit hole, do the exercise. Like if we had to cut things, what would we cut? Like what would we change? And I would also say, if even if your practice is doing great or fine, it's always better to look at options before you need them, right? Before you're in a place of desperation. So it's always a good time to look for a line of credit or get that open before you need it, right? When you are hard up for cash, that's not when you should be going to your bank, right? So if things are good, go to your bank, do the application.
Mhm.
It means it's going to take 30 days. So great, you don't need it right now. Maybe you never even use it. It's always worth the fee. Like I think ours is $250 a year. You're
Mhm.
basically buying insurance, right? Like I don't want to use the money, but it's there in case we need it. And that's worth it. Like that $250 is money well spent.
Mhm.
This is not an area to cheap out on.
Right.
Yeah. So like
Right.
go do the thing, right? Like what are the options? Kind of evaluate that so that you're not tempted by that email promising like we'll fund in 24 hours. Yeah.
Yes. Yep.
All right. Jackie, it's always a good time with you. Thank you so much for joining me
Thanks.
today. And I'll see you back here next quarter.
Sounds good. All right.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
That's it for today's episode of Therapy for Your Money. Catch us on Instagram and Facebook at Therapy for Your Money Podcast, and don't forget to subscribe to Green Oak Accounting on YouTube. Until next time.
The information contained in this podcast represents the host and guest's general opinions and should not be construed as personalized accounting and tax advice. Listeners should consider all facts and circumstances before applying this information and seek appropriate advice from an accountant, financial planner, lawyer, or other professional. Any info provided does not constitute accounting, tax, or legal advice.